Good morning. Welcome to Unity of Wimberley. Those of you joining us on live stream, we welcome you to, and we consider you a part of our community as though you were with us right here in person. Today, my friends, we are doing something that we have never done before in this community that I know of. Today, we are having a special celebration of life for Susan Cranshaw, a beloved member of our community who left this life last Wednesday. We will be honoring her through various moments throughout the service, even as we continue our Christmas series that was regularly scheduled for today. Yes, we will do all of those things. We gather here each Sunday by divine appointment to celebrate the human journey together and to reaffirm the divine that dwells in each of us. So now let us join in calling on this powerful resource. Together, there is only one presence and one power, active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. Okay, so now we're going to do the vision for this community together. We are an open-hearted spiritual community, powerfully transforming our world by honoring the sacred in all. And we practice this mission inspired by our shared spiritual awakening. We offer practical teachings that empower healthy, abundant, and meaningful living. After today's daily word reading, there will be a congregational song during which we all greet each other warmly. We want to respect everyone's personal space, so if you're more comfortable with a handshake, please just extend your hand. And remember today that amongst us are those who are grieving. And so I ask today, it's my request of you, that you let your greetings be tender, that your greetings be heartfelt and warm, that your greeting be in your eyes as well as in your hands and in your arms. And so now, as Mila Rosenbach comes here to read the daily word, I'll be lighting the second candle of Advent, which is the candle of peace.
Good morning. Peace. God's peace is mine. All things contribute to the peace of my soul. Peace is always possible, even on unexpected events. I am never far away from that, what Apostle Paul called the peace of God that passes all understanding. I am a living expression of God, just as every person is. I know that peace, like all of God's qualities, seeks expression in my life. In the stillness of prayer, I embrace God's peace, allowing it to fill my body, mind, and spirit. Centered in the stillness of God, I go about my daily activities, affirming, God's peace is mine. All things contribute to the peace of my soul. Interruptions and inconveniences no longer upset me. My peaceful presence blesses me and everyone I meet. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard the hearts of your minds through Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:7.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds kept their watching over silent flocks by night, behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. So tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, that Jesus Christ was born. The shepherds feared that hailed our Savior's birth. Oh, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Down in a lonely manger, the humble Christ was born, and brought us God's salvation that blessed Christmas morn. Oh, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. One more time. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
Guess we're gonna hug each other now, right?
Over the hills and everywhere, go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Over the hills and everywhere, go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
I'd like to thank Elton Witt, Scott Bird, and Jeff Stockey of Interstate 1. And I want you to know that that is interstate. You understand that, right? Interstate, get it? You get it? Okay, good. Except they're missing one member today, so they said they're interstate -1. So there you go. And what? And plus one, -1. Well, then it's even. Okay. I know math. You guys can have a seat if you'd like for the next little bit. Don't you know Susan's loving this right now? Don't you know that she is probably a little overwhelmed to think about all of us gathering on a Sunday morning in honor of her? When I spoke with her sister-in-law Jane the other day, this was our best time to be able to have this service to honor Susan. And like I said, we've never done this before that I know of. So God, the Great Spirit, was working in me yesterday to begin to formulate how this would look. And it's always exciting when we're bringing something into form that has only existed as an idea. Oh, the thing about silencing your cell phones, those of you who have set your alarms for the 11:11 prayer time, just a reminder that just because you've silenced your phone doesn't mean your alarm isn't going to go off. So turn your alarm off as well. Thank you. I got to know Susan just in the last few months. So my experience with Susan is a snapshot of her life. And during that time, she had 2 hip replacements. She had a fall after the second one that set her back quite a bit. And then she had, for heaven's sake, a brain tumor and complications after that. But I never saw Susan complain about it. She showed up here as often as she could with a smile on her face, dragging that oxygen tank as though it was no big deal. And what a gift she was in that. Always smiling. And always, I will hear in my head for the rest of my life the sweet sound of her voice that was like no other. She was one of our prayer chaplains, and it was very important for her to stay current with what was going on in our community. We are her tribe. And she had a tribe that extended beyond this community into the textile community here in Wimberley and beyond. And her tribal family of origin are here this morning with us. And so it's a hard thing to see her go. We weren't quite ready. And the thing that's important for us to remember, and you've heard me say this before, is that someone's passing is never a precocious thing that God does. It's not that. God does not snatch us from this earth and say, time for you to be an angel. Although that's probably what happens after we leave this place. When we're free of a body that might have plagued us, as Susan's did for many years, we're able to carry on the work of our spiritual destiny once we leave this plane of existence. And so I have to believe that Susan and God had a divine agreement that she would leave exactly when and how she chose to do so. And it was difficult. She fought to stay here. She wanted to stay here. And yet in the end, when she took very little food and no water, she was preparing herself to go. And I could see the difference between the Susan after the first brain surgery and the one after the second one. And then the Susan that I was privileged to be in the presence of with some of her other friends on Wednesday when she passed from this life. And when she breathed her last breath, I can tell you that it was sweet and peaceful and easy. And is that not what we wish for our beloveds? So we can take comfort in that, in knowing that Susan passed from this life that way. And she allowed us to be with her. Because, you know, a lot of folks like to slip away in the night, the middle of the night. I've attended a few of those. And sometimes with no one present. And Susan let us be witness to her dying, just as she let us be witness to her living. And what a great creative spirit she was. No matter what her body was doing, she found a way to bring that which was existing only as an idea into beautiful existence. And I remember visiting with her one afternoon, a long afternoon we spent together. She was so proud of her studio. She was so proud of all the things that she'd gathered over the years. I was astounded at the scope and the breadth of her accumulation, but also, well, let me just say I've never known a person that works in textiles that didn't have quite a bit of textiles. But the scope and the breadth of her creativity, of her artistic product, astounding. And oh my goodness, she loved her dog Birdie so much. Oh, and I know why. If you were ever around Birdie, she demanded that you love her. She got right up there in front of you and said, "Here I am I not the cutest thing you ever saw?" And I'll just keep reminding you. And Susan loved her so completely. And Birdie was a constant companion for her. I don't know how Susan, with the limitations in her gait, was able to keep up with that dog who had no limitations in her gait whatsoever. She was a go dog all the time. But she loved her Susie. She certainly did. And we were lucky to have her as part of us. We were lucky that she blessed us in so many ways. You'll see at the end of our service today, we'll have a slideshow of various photographs that have been collected to help you see her when she was at her very best. And that smile, consistent, just consistent. That one. I was given a vision many years ago by a friend of mine who had died far too young during the AIDS epidemic, before the good medications came out. One part of the dream he revealed to me, it wasn't a dream, it was a visitation. He shared with me what happens, in his view, after your passing. There's a tremendous, tremendous energetic field that we move into after we die. We call it heaven. We call it the realm of spirit. We call it a lot of things. But for us to go from this life that we've been living here to that next realm is a huge leap. So we're allowed a period of time in which we might review our existence, so that we might, without judgment, without fear, with great compassion, we look at our lives and we get to learn every lesson that we might have missed. We get to see how all the pieces fit together. We get to see what difference our life made upon this earth. We get to see where we might have done things differently, and yes, now I understand. So that before we wake up to this incredible field of energy, we have fully integrated the life that we have just lived upon this earth. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but I like to think that it is. It makes sense to me. That vision came to me in 1989, and it's never changed. Now, that time and space for that to happen, time and space are a whole different thing in the realm of spirit. So I have no idea how long that takes in our human construct of time. Might be in an instant, it might be a year. But what we can do is continue to hold Susan in our loving embrace, not hold her with possession, but hold her with absolute confidence and knowledge that she is doing exactly the next thing that is perfect for her soul. That's where we find the comfort, isn't it? That's where we find it. And so there's one hand wanting to say, please don't go yet. And the other one's saying, go fly free, beloved. Go and do that. And don't you know that she's going to light it up? Don't you know that that's true? So I will pray with you the words that I prayed with Susan as we were there together, watching her go along the way. It seemeth such a little way to me across to that strange country, the beyond, and yet not strange, for it has grown to be the home of those of whom I am so fond. They make it seem familiar and most dear, as journeying friends bring distant regions near. So close it lies that when my sight is clear, I think I almost see the gleaming strand. I know I feel those who have gone from here come near enough sometimes to touch my hand. I often think, but for our veiled eyes, we should find heaven right round about us lies. And so for me there is no sting to death, and so the grave has lost its victory. It is but crossing, with a bated breath and white set face, a little strip of sea, to find the loved ones waiting on the shore, more beautiful, more precious than before. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. David.
Well, I can understand why Susan enjoys this place so much. Y'all have a lot of fun here. I am the chieftain du jour of Susan's family tribe. I am David Cranshaw, her older brother. I'm here today with my wife, Jane, our two sons, John and Matthew, and also here with us today are my brother, Bill, and his wife, Melanie. On behalf of our family, I want to thank Jill, wherever you are, there you are, and this congregation for allowing us to be with you here this morning in the aftermath of a difficult week to try and bring some closure, remembrance, and celebration to Susan's life. It's greatly appreciated. Our father, not our father, was a talented artist. After World War II, he took up a business career, but he painted and sketched throughout his life. He was a great talent. Susan came naturally to her interest in creative art. She was, as a young woman, very frustrated by the limited opportunities in her high school in upstate New York. We weren't terribly progressive in those years. To find a means to express herself. In college and then later in grad school at RIT in ceramics, she blossomed given the opportunity. I can't tell you how beautiful a young woman Susan was. She was stunning. She was and remained independent all her life. She was incredibly strong-willed. Did I say she was incredibly strong-willed? She was, in her youth, physically strong. She worked out of a studio in western Vermont. She created spectacular, wonderful, one-of-a-kind pieces of pottery that really built her name and reputation throughout New England pottery circles. Changes in her personal life led her to San Miguel de Allende in Mexico, where she continued her fine work in ceramics until a major illness prompted her to return to the U.S. for treatment. She settled here in Wimberley. And this community was a healing tonic for her body and for her soul, for her spirituality. Physically, the Susan who arrived in Wimberley was a shadow of her former self in terms of her vigor and physical strength. But the Wimberley community, and in particular, I think this church, seemed to renew and revitalize her. Unable to continue to work anymore in ceramics for health reasons, she found the energy to experiment in a new medium. The beautiful quilts that she came to produce, inspired by the unique animals and plants of the Southwest, if you've seen them, they're intricate, they're breathtaking works of art. They are full of vibrant color, color that frankly is hard to express in ceramics, but with fabric you can do so many beautiful things. They are, in my opinion, some of the finest works of art that she produced in her life. And Jan is going to fix up one, and we'll leave that here with the church where I know she would want it to be. Susan engaged in relationships within her community with gusto, with her neighbors, with her friends, with her fellow artists. At her best, she was a loving, caring individual who would move heaven and earth to support a friend in need. Personally, she had her ups and downs while living here in Wimberley, and when times came for her to have need, her community of friends here always rallied to provide her support and to sustain her, never more so than during the arduous trial of the last 3 months. I cannot adequately express the family's appreciation for all of you who have taken action in one form or another to aid Susan during these final days. We lost our father, again, local, in 2012, and we lost our mother, with whom Susan was terribly close, in 2016. And family dynamics are always interesting, sometimes challenging, always at the holidays. Our mother was sort of the hub of the family communication network. And with her gone, we had sort of a natural period of family transition. Fortunately, as a result of that, I had the opportunity to spend more time with Susan, as did Jane, in the last 5 years than I probably had in the preceding 20. As we grow and go in different directions, we raise children, we are consumed with work, but we were blessed to have a natural time of renewing bonds and coming together again. It's something that I'm terribly grateful for. We grieve her passing, but she could simply not go on any longer physically. She was mentally resilient, the day before she died, she wanted to know how well she was doing. But her body simply could not go on any longer. And so now we celebrate the joy of her life. And we hope that you, like us, will share and preserve that joy and those joyous memories of time well spent in her company, and in doing so, keep her close to your hearts as we do ours. And we cannot thank you enough for allowing us to participate in this service today. It means a lot to the family, and you were a great part of her extended family here, and we thank you. Thank you, Joe.
That was well said. Thank you. Jan.
I'm good. So this is the quilt that David's family is offering our church. Oh, sorry. And it's not finished. So I'm gonna finish the binding on it. Karen, you know I can do binding now. She's one of our textile group. Anyway, I wanted to show it to you today. Thought it was important for you to see it. I didn't know what to say today. This is my dearest friend. And for a very long time, before Susan and I met, I prayed and prayed for an artist friend and somebody who, textiles, colors. And so the first thing that came this morning was, and let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. Gahil Gibran. And that was our friendship. Our friendship, when we met, Susan was on the studio tour here in Wimberley, and Stanley and I always loved going to those things. And so we planned to go to her house last. I said, at 4 o'clock, we have to be there. This is the one place I want to go because it was a textile artist. And I'd never seen one in this town before that I was friends with. And so my prayers came true. Stanley and I got there, and she and Alfredo at the time were sitting out there having a glass of wine. And Susan took me into her studio, and she had this cabinet. I think it was supposed to be for dishes or something. And she opens it up, and you talk about vibrant colors. All of her fabrics, they were in these piles, stacks like this, absolutely perfectly folded. And the colors, and I looked at her and I said, Susan, we're going to be best friends, honey. And so we were. She was my dream, my prayer answered, to have somebody be that close and work together. Our creative passions recognized each other. We had a sacred language through our art, and we shared at so many deep levels through the years. We were in a spiritual entrepreneur class I'd been in, and invited Susan to come in, and so we did a lot of work on our spirits. And through Centers for Spiritual Living, we took lots of classes over a phone bridge together, and prayer partners, and for many years. And so in all of these places that we got together, there was prayer partners, there was the book club, there was the textile group. She was such an eager learner for anything. She was always open to something new. And she had a great mind along with this incredible talent that she had. And oftentimes we would work on our own projects, but be in one of either of our studios. And sometimes we worked on projects together. And our textile group did a whole retrospect after the Blanco River floods, and we all made these panels. Susan and I didn't quite finish in time. I finally finished mine in honor of Susan, and hers remains unfinished, but the pieces are still beautiful. She was also belonged to the chaplains, as it was mentioned, her writing group with Lolita, the book club, our textile group called Material Goyles. And Susan and I spent a lot of time at quilt shows. I'd travel with her because she needed a little extra help. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Standing up on ladders, hanging quilts at these quilt shows. But the thing that I remember most about those times was how she treated everybody that came into her little booth. Because she was selling her products, but she was teaching at the same time. And everybody that came into her booth got her eyes, got her smile, her generosity. No one left without a gift in those teaching places. Oh, you like that little piece of fabric here? Just go ahead and take it. And everybody left with such a feeling full, being loved, just in those few small moments. And so after a while, those quilt shows became too much for her to handle. And she began to do classes closer to home, some in Kerrville, at Creations. We spent a lot of time looking at fabric and buying fabric at Creations in Kerrville. And, money. Yeah, I'd go home, I'd say, I can't buy anything. And you come home with a stack like this, because it was all batiks, and she, you know how much she loved her batiks. Susan loved the Blanco River, as many of you know, and Stanley and I lived on a little ranch in Fisher, Moonrise Ranch, and Susan was always one of our special guests. She spent most of her Thanksgivings and Christmases with us when we were here if we weren't going to see children someplace else. And my children adored her, and she adored them because, as her family knows, she loved children. And she loved her nephews and her nieces, and children lit up with Susan, like many of us do when we're in her presence. I'm sorry, Courtney, she didn't get her chance to work with the youth that I know she was going to do and signed up to do. But her spirit will always be in there. And every time Susan came out to visit us, you had to go over this bridge. It was called Slime Bridge. And there was a reason, because people slipped off of it all the time, and it always had water on it. But Susan always stopped and would rest there for as long as possible until someone came up behind her and she had to move. But she'd just sit and look both ways on that river. And we spent a lot of time, because our property was on the river, and we had this sort of lagoon side of the river, and we'd just go down and sit in the water for hours and hours and hours and create things in our minds. Oh, look what we can do. And she'd bring clay down I was not a clay artist for sure. She would just make little things down there, and wow. It was a place of peace and harmony for her, and I know from the family that she spent a lot of time on rivers and canoeing. And we had a couple of ceremonies for Susan before she passed with some of her different friends. And in a textile group where we were having it, there was a blue canoe with a woman laying in it. And we all saw Susan in that boat and just riding center stream into her next expression. It was beautiful, and I'll never forget that image in my mind. Let's see. Well, as David said, generosity of spirit showed up in the support she gave to others all the time. And we saw it when Pete was making his passing, and Stanley when he broke his ankle, and my daughter-in-law who had ovarian cancer. Susan asked if she could be a part of the family because she had been through her own, and she wanted to help my daughter-in-law, and she did. Her prayers were always beautiful, her writing was beautiful, her expression was beautiful. There's nothing I didn't love about Susan. Through all the hills and valleys, and believe me, we had them all, as real friendships would do. We were real with each other. And so this was a little pin that Susan gave me many, many years ago. And I wear it all the time because it reminds me of her vibrant color, her vibrant expression in this life. I'm so grateful because the biggest gift, and there were so many over the years, but the one that touched me the most, touched my heart the most was, I always said I made art, but I could never claim I was an artist until I met Susan. And because of her encouragement, because of her strength, because of all kinds of things, I learned to say, I am an artist, and that was the greatest gift someone could have possibly given me, to know that in myself through her. And I know many of you have had just wonderful, beautiful experiences with her warm-heartedness, with the gorgeous smile. And I just have so much gratitude. Stanley and I do. Stanley had his very personal relationship with Susan as well. And she always claimed she had some Jewishness in her. And so these two just hooked right up with that. It was great. So anyway, thank you all, and thank you for blessing Susan in all the ways that each of you has through all these years.
Hi, friends. Susan and I met right here at Unity. I moved here about 5.5 years ago, and she was one of the first people I met. I wasn't part of her arts and textiles group, but we had so many other things that we developed a relationship with. We both celebrated food, and I loved cooking for her. And I couldn't get away with cooking if I had something on the grill in the back. We were so close. I always, whenever I grilled, I always had something I'd take next door. And the second was spiritual. I sensed I was new to Unity and developing my own spiritual path when I came here. And I sensed that she was further along the path because she just shared so many wonderful stories, and we had great conversations of ponderance and marveling at the magic of the universe. We had some just amazing conversations, many over a glass of wine. The third was that we were both multi-decade survivors. I think that's really what bonded us. We had physical challenges, and we both found joy in proving the doctors wrong over a long period of time. I also found my way to Wimberley, and I think many others do. It's after a serious illness, you find that you need a place, a sense of place like Wimberley, and especially this community. And it's a healing place. It truly is. Such wonderful people that I'm grateful for. The past few months have been really hard. And my memories of Susan will mostly precede this trying period that we had. I did experience a few heartfelt moments over the past 3 months. Her love of Gigi and Shelley at Deer Creek was amazing. There's some really wonderful people there. My own interactions on some good days, some bad days were just amazing. Donna's steadfast, caring, and love blew me away, Donna. And then there's David. When he visited, I wasn't able to see you, Jane and Bill, when you all visited. I was a walking petri dish at the time and didn't want to get anybody sick. But Susan had described David. I think we met briefly at the wedding, but didn't really get to know you at that point. But Susan kind of described you as a tough corporate lawyer, you know, and I'm going to blow your cover now because I experienced some moments of tenderness that only you could see from the bonds between siblings, where you were at her bedside and feeding her, and that really touched my heart. I could see the love that was there. You know, all our siblings were all different, and that bond just exists. And I know she was happy you were there. I can't stop without once again acknowledging over-the-top gratitude for Donna Hughes. Donna, you were just so amazing. Susan's friend and neighbor of many years. She was there before Susan moved into her house. She spent countless hours and days with Susan with so much unconditional love, and you taught me how to be tough through that period. Yeah, man, it's. I don't think I could ever work in one of those places, that's for sure, but it takes a special kind of person. And she deserves a medal for taking in Sweet Birdie. Susan's baby, and let's call Birdie, say, a free spirit herself. Susan and I both are lucky to call you friend. Susan left us with a bit of her art and her heart. I'll always be grateful. Thank you.
So as we transition from one thing to another, I'm going to ask Courtney to come and give our gathering prayer. Courtney, come.
Good morning. I believe we're already gathered. I believe we're already all pretty much in our heart space. But if you will join me in gathering our awareness, and our focus, and bringing it to the beating of our heart. In this moment, we exist. And because we exist, Susan also will always exist. In our love, in our thoughts, in our memories, and how we share ourselves with one another. So in this space of acknowledgement, let us pray. Living, loving Spirit in which we move and have our being. Thank you. Thank you for the experiences. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the love, the joy, and the expansiveness that each of us have shared with Susan, that we share with one another, and that we will carry in our lives. Let us always remember that any sadness that we may feel is a sign of how deeply we have loved. For the memories we have and for the memories that we will make, we say thank you, and so it is.
So you might be asking yourself, how does all this fit into our Christmas message? This is our Christmas message today. Do you know, in our culture, we don't have a good culture around living and dying here in this country. We could do better. And so today we have the Christmas story of new life, and at the same time we look at a life that has ended as we've known it. And we've brought them one in each hand together, have we not? So today is a day of mourning and a day of celebration. It's a day of letting go and a day of embracing. It's a day of looking to the past and looking to the future. And you know, the whole story that we are exploring this month is about a journey. It's about a journey of a young woman who was given an impossible message that she had to embrace. And she embraced it willingly. And today, we talk a little bit about Joseph. Now, here's who Joseph is to us. Joseph found out that this young woman he was about to marry, who was supposed to be a virgin, was with child. And his first thought was, it says in the scripture, to put her aside, to let her gracefully go, because this was a dishonor to him, until he had a dream. And the angel came to him and said, Joseph, do not worry about this. This is the fulfillment of a prophecy. This is a very special time in your life. Mary's okay. You're okay. We've got this. Wasn't exactly like that, but I'm paraphrasing. And Joseph said, okay. And not only did he embrace the impossible, he nurtured it, he protected it, he took it on as his own. And so I would ask you, in your sorrow, yes, maybe you would have it be different if Susan hadn't left us. But also know that the Joseph in you says, all is well. The Joseph in you, that part of yourself that says, I don't want this to be happening, not only about losing a friend, but about everything else that happens to us in our lives. I do not want this to be happening. You remember what Mary said when she first heard the message? Anybody remember those words? How can this be? Thank you. Kind of like Joseph, except I think his was maybe a little more forceful. Do what? So there is an imperative for us to be able to embrace it all. There is an imperative for us to look at the things that are impossible, and sometimes our grief makes us feel like it's impossible. But we embrace it. That's not too big a stretch for us, is it? Well, well, we're going to try. We're going to try. Because remember the next part of the journey? The next part of the journey was it was time to pay taxes. And so Joseph had to make a journey to Jerusalem to pay taxes. Now, I'm not sure. Stanley might be able to tell me how far it was from Nazareth to Bethlehem, but I don't really care how far it was, because if you're pregnant, riding on a donkey, any distance is too far. And yet, she went along because this was the next part of the journey. So we have to pick ourselves up and go. We have to do what's next. We have to learn how to embrace life without Susan being amongst us. We have to learn how to embrace our difficulties the way she did. We have to look at the impossible and see where Spirit works through it. And I believe we're up to that. Beloved ones, I see your faces. I see your faces. And I see how much you are invested in the next part of your spiritual growth. You are eager for it. You may not know it, but I see it. And we are here to encourage each other. We're here to nurture each other. We're here to protect each other. We're here to embrace each other. That's what a tribe does, no matter how far apart we might be. That's what we do. You are a part of our family. And we have become bigger in heart and in spirit because of all of you. Thank you. Thank you for your beloved who was part of our lives. And so, as we go into a very brief meditation today, let me give you the words of Father Thomas Keating. Did you read your Father Richard Rohr reading today? Because here's what Father Thomas Keating says. We may think of prayer as thoughts or feelings expressed in words, but this is only one expression. Prayer is the opening of mind and heart, our whole being, to God, the ultimate mystery, beyond thoughts, words, and emotions. Through grace, we open our awareness to God, whom we know by faith is within us, closer than breathing, closer than thinking, closer than choosing, closer than consciousness itself. So whenever your heart space, your mind space, and your body space are all present and accounted for at the same time, you can experience pure presence, a moment of deep interconnection with the pure, gratuitous being of anything and everything. It will often be experienced as a quiet leap of joy in the heart. So that's all I ask you to do, just for a moment. Mind, body, heart, spirit, open. Nothing else. Nothing else. Seek not. Just be open. And as you experience that leap of joy, let your heart be comforted. Let inspiration flood your being. The God of creation, the God of billions of galaxies, is right here and right now. And I invite you in this sacred space to bless Susan, to bless her on her way. We release her to that next marvelous expression of her being. We consecrate and bless her earthly remains as they return ashes to ashes and dust to dust to the universe from whence she came. And you, beloved, be blessed as well throughout your entire being. For today, we have experienced that which is the only thing that matters: love. And for that, we are truly grateful. And so it is.
There is a place where you can always go. Come with me. Where it's all right to let your feelings show. Come with me. What a pleasant journey, isn't very far. We can go together, stay right where you are. Now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart.
There is a place where you can be yourself. Come with me. And it's a place where you can free yourself. Come with me. And you know it's waiting not so far. No reservations, we could go today. Now it's time to start. Right here in your heart. And the light shines through each window, and the door is open wide, and each question has an answer. If you'll only look inside. journey isn't very far. You can go together, stay right where you are. Now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart. Now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart.
I want you to know that we did not change up the music for the musicians because this all came together so quickly. So this is the song that they had, all this music, they had already planned. Good old God knows exactly what the plan is. This is the time in our service where we have a chance to give back. As a part of our prosperity consciousness, we give where we're spiritually nourished. We're grateful for these gifts, and we know that Spirit is working through us to support all that is needed for our community and beyond. So let's take a moment to bring these gifts into our hearts as we prepare our offerings and as our ushers come forward now. We offer this affirmation of abundance. Together, divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I receive.
Creator of the stars at night, thy people everlasting light. O Christ, Redeemer of us all, we pray you hear us when we call. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come to us. When this old world drew on toward night, you came, but not in splendor bright, not as a monarch, but the child of Mary, blameless mother mild. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come to us. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come to us. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come. Come, oh, come to us.
Eldon, would you tell everybody where this song came
Sure,
from?
sure. That's from 7th century Latin, translated in the 1800s, and used at Advent.
Used at Advent.
For peace.
For peace, which was our Advent candle today. Isn't that lovely? Thank you. You guys make me feel peaceful. You do. Thank you very much for being here today. So with our full hearts now, let us bless these gifts. Together, we bless these gifts and the givers with our love and gratitude. Let's take a moment to welcome all who are with us today for the very first time. The Cranshaws, of course, and anyone else. Would you please raise your hands so that we can greet you? Thank you for being with us today. Thank you so much. If you're with us for the first time, I'm sure this is not quite what you were expecting, but we are full of the unexpected here. So please come see us again, and there is a blue card in the foyer that you can fill out if you'd like to be part of our e-newsletter. We can make a name tag for you for the next time you're here. Just a couple of announcements before we wrap up. Don't forget to bring your family ornament for our tree. We're putting white ornaments on the tree this year, so be sure and bring one for your family. The bookstore is having a 20% off sale today on jewelry. So don't miss that. Come Wednesday evening for open meditation. We have quiet music, candles. It's come and go as you please. I'll be here if you would like one-on-one prayer. And then stay and join us after the service for cake and coffee. So we have a little reception today. As always, our blue prayer request sheets are on the back table. Yellow gratitude sheets are there for our gratitude jar. I want to thank you again, Cranshaw family, for allowing us to bless Susan this way today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the gift of her. Thank you for the gift of you. Let's sing in our kids.
You are a light, you are a light, you are a light in this world. You are a light, you are a light, you are a light in this world. And you shine, and you shine, and you shine so bright. And you shine, and you shine, and you shine so bright.
And as they gather up here together, let us bless our kids, children and youth of Unity. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you just the way you are. And now our prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, because I am.
I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. 'Cause I'm only for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. 'Cause I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. My faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. 'Cause I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. 'Cause I'm only here
And that was it.